All right, welcome to our Thursday night New York Giants Preservation Society meeting for today, Thursday, September 15th. We have real great guests tonight, Giant royalty, Mario Alioto. And Mario, first of all, thank you for getting me in touch with Donna, and please thank her for
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Next week, we will have Lou Friedman. Lou wrote a new book on Johnny Mize, the big cat. Lou also did a book on Juan Marichal. So Lou will be talking about the Johnny Mize book, mostly his involvement with the New York Giants. And then later on in 2023, he'll come back and talk about Juan Marichal. A couple of other things. Some of you sent out a donation for the group. So I thank you. We are all caught up with paying off our Zoom, so we're good to go. Everything's good with that. I'm also I was in contact with one of our members who is a lawyer in Staten Island, and we're going to be working to have Bobby Thompson's number retired by the Staten Island Ferry Hawks of the Independent League. And hopefully there'll be a Bobby Thompson night, and whoever can go, it'd be really nice. Maybe if they take up the idea, they'll put his uniform number up on the outfield fence, which I think will be a wonderful thing. That being said, tonight we have Mario Alioto. Mario will be celebrating his 50th year with the San Francisco Giants next year. So if anybody deserves a plaque on that wall outside of Oracle Park, it is Mario. Mario is one of the nicest guys I've met with the Giants. I met him when Monty Irvin's statue was unveiled in New Jersey, maybe 6 years ago. I don't even remember when. Yeah. Very, very pleasant and a great guy to talk to. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to let Mario talk a little bit about his wonderful career with the Giants, starting as a bat boy in 1973. And then we will talk about questions involving the current team, the future team, and the past team. And why don't we all welcome to the Preservation Society, Mario Alioto.
Thank you.
Mario, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. I know how busy you are. And we can't thank you enough for spending some time with us.
Well, it's great being here. I've actually, Russ and Pat, but especially Russ, has talked about this group many times. So I'm pretty familiar. In fact, I've listened in, or I saw one of your recordings a few months back. So I'm pretty aware of how emotional everyone is about the Giants, and it's just neat. That's why I was enjoying the first few minutes of just hearing you guys banter back and forth, because as we say, baseball fans are emotional, and Giants fans are everywhere, not just in San Francisco. So I hope I live up to the hype, but I've got some stories, but I will tell you quickly about who I am and what my story is. When you say I've been with the team 50 years, it doesn't feel like I'm that old, but I actually started when I was 12, back in 1973. That's before they had labor laws, I guess. And for those of you who know the Alioto name, it's a big name in San Francisco, but I always say, and Pat Russ have heard me say this, I'm not one of those Aliotos. I came from the other side of the railroad tracks. In fact, grew up about 2 miles from Candlestick Park in the south side of the city. And I was a lucky kid because my dad, he had a linen route, and one of his stops, he had hospitals, restaurants, and happened to have the Giants clubhouse as a linen route. And I'm sure a few towels fell off the back of his truck. And the next thing you know, my brother was a bat boy in 1972 on the visiting side, because Murph back then was on the visiting side for all, even though Eddie Logan wasn't traveling. Murph traveled, but he was a visiting clubhouse person. So in 73, again, I always hung out by the door. I used to see all the players come out and all the fancy cars, and I think about cars in that parking lot. I think of Willie Mays and Willie McCovey driving up their Chrysler Imperials right to the door and giving Mr. Thomas, who was the guard, the keys, and just walked into the clubhouse. I thought, boy, that's, you talk about the big leagues. But those are great times. But in 1973, my brother wanted to do something else and play baseball, and I wanted to make money. So at $7 a game, I became the visiting clubhouse bat boy, and stayed there through pretty much through 1979. And it was a great run for me. I really enjoyed it and laugh about it a lot because, you talk about those uniforms and all those caps. I mean, think about the players that went through in that period of time. The Hank Aaron's and Bob Gibson's and Pete Rose and Johnny Bench. You name a team, and I think of a player immediately. And I knew I was lucky back then at the time. And going from 50 years ago, this next August, to still being there today is pretty incredible. And it's a great business. I love it. And I was telling someone the other day that the very first time I walked in the clubhouse, I still remember what it smelled like. And there's something to this day when I smell rubbing alcohol or pine tar, I just can't get it out of my mind. It's the best smell in the world. And there's something about that of being able to peek behind the curtain, what that's like to be in that locker room with all these players that are your idols. So I'll tell you one quick story, and then I'll tell you just kind of fast forward to kind of what I'm doing today. But back then, my first team ever was the Montreal Expos. And I looked it up. I think it was August 7th. But that following series was the New York Mets. And it was Willie Mays' last trip to San Francisco as a New York Met. And he had already announced his retirement. So, back then, and Pat, that was before your time, but if you got 20,000 people on a Sunday, that was a big celebration. And I think we had about 20,000 on that Sunday to come out and see Willie Mays for the last time. And he never came out for batting practice, but he, right before the game started, he walked out through that right field wall and walked across the field with a few of the other players or coaches. And of course, everybody went crazy. And I remember, it was right before the game started, and I didn't have my glove with me, but he walks across the field and puts this stuff in the dugout and looks at me and said, "Let's play catch." I said, "My God, sure." But all I had was a catcher's mitt. There was a catcher's mitt on the dugout. I mean, on the bench. So I played catch with him, and I remember when he saw the catcher's mitt, he said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to throw it that hard." I said, "No, that's fine." But his idea of not throwing it hard and mine were unbelievable. I mean, everything he threw was rising on me. And but it was that Willie Mays that we all know that always wants to provide just a lifetime moment and a memory for a young kid. He did that for me back then, and I'll never forget that. And we still talk about it too. It's but playing catch with Willie Mays, his last trip to San Francisco. So anyway, I did that through 1979, and going into the 1980 season, I left. I just moved on to college. And I was, my baseball career was over. And I read in the newspaper one morning that, and this was 1980. So Eddie Logan was retiring. Mike Murphy was going to the home clubhouse. And Lou Brinson, who was Sweet Lou, was going to be taking over. He was like the assistant to Eddie Logan. He was going to take over the visiting clubhouse. Well, I was in my dorm room. I saw the San Francisco Chronicle one morning, and there was a story that Lou Brinson was killed in spring training by a drunk driver. And the very next day, Mike Murphy called me and said, "You want to come back and work in the clubhouse?" And when you're 19 years old, that's a job that I would do, you think about doing forever. So thank God I went to college very close to home. And so I ran the visiting clubhouse when I was 19 years old, 80, 81, and 82. My mom did a lot of the food for me. Got a lot of stories about those clubhouse days. But I want to say it's the best job I've ever had, but it was one of the best jobs I've ever had. And I really enjoyed that. But in 1982, when I graduated, Murph was adamant that you went to college. He kept saying you went to college for a reason, so you got to use it. And one night we had a softball game, a company softball game, and didn't really know Pat Gallagher that well. I think I had a few too many beers. I said too much. The next day, I went and met with him, and Pat said, "Why don't you come work for me?" So moved to the front office in 1983, and never dreamed that all these years later that I'd still be there. And there's been a lot of memories and stories in the meantime. But those of you who love baseball like I do, it's a very poetic, romantic, and emotional sport, and that's why we're all here tonight. So that's kind of a quick. I'm not going to go fast forward to what I am, but today though I'm the EVP of Business Operations, and I always say, and Pat's always said this too, when the team wins, I look really smart. And when you have tough years, it's a little more difficult. And the game has changed, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit. But it's still a great game, and I still love going to work every day.
Mario,
How's that for an intro?
Perfect. I think you left out, you didn't give your mother enough credit. She certainly got enough airtime last week on the Giant game. We
Oh,
all
you
saw
saw
her.
that?
Oh, absolutely. We saw her here in New York. And
Yeah,
the announcers, of course, spotted you and your mother. And they
yeah,
gave a nice shout out. So,
yeah. My mom is 96 and came to this country from Italy when she was 13, and she always was a baseball fan. Of course, she liked Joe DiMaggio for obvious reasons, but she during our 2010 and 2012 World Series run, somehow we put her on the scoreboard by mistake doing the fist pump, and kind of became part of the story. And for those of you that might be Italian, my kids call her the fist pump Nani. So I never thought I'd see my mother go down the ramp after a ball game high-fiving total strangers, but it was a great memory, and she still likes to go to the game once in a while. So we were lucky enough to go there, and Kruten Kite gave her a nice shout out, which was always good.
terrific.
Hey, the only other thing I'll say this on the business side of things, because I'm going to say it's because Pat's here. He's heard me say it so many times, but Pat really has always been my mentor in how to approach what we do, and reminding ourselves often that this is the fun business, and all the lines that Russ and I use, we stole them all from Pat. You'll probably hear most of them today, but you think about some of the promotions and all the fun stuff we've done over the years that Pat has done. We do kind of try to remember that this is the fun business, and this is not life or death stuff. But on the other hand, you never know why people come to the game and what they're going through, in their lives or whatever their personal situations are. And our job is to make it fun coming to the ballpark. And one of the things that I'm most proud of, and I'm not going to take all the credit because there was a lot of people involved in it, but to this day, back in 1999 was our last year at Candlestick Park, and we did a number of promotions that were throwback promotions. And one of them, and my mom in my mind kind of comes to mind on this one here, because we were talking about ideas, and I still remember that I had the bobblehead that I bought, or my parents bought for me when at the concession stand at Candlestick Park, because back then all you can buy was a plastic helmet, a bobblehead, maybe a felt pennant, and I don't know, maybe a pencil or something. But I still had that bobblehead, and I thought, why don't we do a promotion if we can recreate a Willie Mays bobblehead in 1999? And that was, to this day, I swear I never thought we'd still be doing bobbleheads. And I remember years ago, I was on a vacation in Italy, and I saw bobbleheads being sold in front of the Vatican. And I thought, boy, a bunch of us made the bobblehead supplier a multimillionaire who's now retired, and I'm still working. Something's not right here. But that was a great promotion, and it blows me away today when I see bobbleheads and that teams are still using it as a prime giveaway. So one of the things that I'm pretty proud of from our past.
Mario, I'm going to start it off. I got one today question and one past question.
Okay.
I know you are not involved in, actually the baseball acquisition of players and stuff, but just your opinion, are the fans in San Francisco, are they willing to do a rebuilding program there for the current team? Because, we've been seeing different things in the paper about we want to get younger and more athletic. And then you also then read that, we're going to be re-signing a lot of the guys who are not young and athletic. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can speak to this because you're right. I don't oversee the baseball stuff, but I'm also a fan and have opinions on certain things. Look, our game has changed over the last several years, as we all know, and that doesn't make it right or wrong. It's a different time. And I think, if you think about what we all went through the last couple of years with the pandemic and going from having 40,000 people in the ballpark watching the team to selling cutouts that don't make any noise, that don't eat or drink. I mean, we've all been through a lot, and then you have a season like last year where you won 107 games and everybody's happy, and you kind of start connecting with certain players, and you get caught up in that euphoria of a great team. So I don't think it's so much about whether the fan base is willing or not to rebuild. I think what they're looking for is which players can they really cling on to and be their heroes. Hey, when we were all kids, and I can say we in this group, when I was a kid, before I worked for the Giants, our infield was the same every single year. It was McCovey, Fuentes, Spire, and I think it was either Jimmy Ray Hart. I'm a little
Alan
younger,
Gallagher.
so and then Alan Gallagher and Steve Onaveris. But I always got to throw him in there because I like guys who don't a lot of people don't remember. But I mean, it wasn't. We didn't have 40-man rosters where players are going up and down every day. Your first baseman was your first baseman year after year, and I think the game now it's a little more of a challenge for our fans and for all of us to figure out, are you loving the organization, or are you clinging on to a certain player who has an unbelievable personality or is a great baseball player? I think that's kind of the change that we're all grappling with on the business side to how do you present the game now to today's fan. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about the fan of tomorrow. I'm still worried about the fan of today, because they're the ones that are still coming to the game and supporting us. So Gary, it's kind of hard to answer that specifically, but I do think that San Franciscans like winners, and they know what it's like because it wasn't that long ago that we won, and frankly, that was called last year. So, the best thing about baseball, I've said this, and you guys have heard me say this so many times, is 2 more weeks, we're all back in first place again. We're all back to 0-0. We could start over, and that's the beauty of this business. And whether we bring back four of our players or half of our players, I don't think it matters. It's the beginning of a new story, and everyone thinks you're going to win the World Series again. And that's the beauty of the business we're in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And my question about the past. This weekend, you guys are honoring Hunter Pence by putting a plaque on the Giants Wall of Fame. And well-deserved. He was, iconic in his years with the Giants. Initially, Peter McGowan had set standards, 9 years, all-star games, etc. And the rules have now changed. Now it's if you were a 3-time World Series champ, you get the plaque on the wall. I was in Philadelphia, and the Phillies have a franchise wall, including the famed players who played on the Philadelphia A's. Would the Giants ever consider putting, the Hall of Fame Giants on with plaques on an existing wall or a new wall? And one of our guys is going to be talking about that to honor them. And I'm not talking about, Steve Carlton or Gary Carter who played, a cup of coffee. I'm talking about legitimate players and office people, Ed Logan Sr. or whoever. Would the Giants ever entertain that? And I also, there is a season ticket holder in here who would, be willing to show you where this might go. Can he do that for you, or do you want to speak on that first?
Well, I want to make sure I'm clear on the question. So you're talking about a wall, forget where it is and what it looks like, but honoring folks who are in the Hall of Fame, or just come up with new criteria?
No, Hall of Fame, New York Giants.
Oh, New York Giants. Got it.
Yes, okay. Because, I am a former educator, and you see the retired numbers out there, and some of the kids in the stands might say, well, who is that? Or what did he do? Well, if you have a plaque out there on the street, wherever this is decided, this is a wonderful thing. I know San Franciscans did not care about New York until we won the World Series. And now you do not see jackets with 3 World Series patches. You see with 8, anything to beat the Dodgers.
Right.
I think it's, a good idea is what I think.
Yeah, Gary, now that I follow what you're saying, yeah, I think it's something we've talked about before because, look, at our job as storytellers, we've got to tell the history of our game and our franchise and our players. It's one thing talking about a player and seeing, or a name, John McGraw, and just sticking it up on it in a plaque. But what about John McGraw? Who was he? Part of what we need to do as all of us in our industry is to tell those stories. And we got to pick our spots on when to do that and how to do that. So the idea of celebrating New York, I will say, although it's not displayed now, but Pat and Russ both remember this. I remember we made a deal and the NY Giants letters, yes. Although I don't think we have the S, is in our possession from the Polo Grounds. I mean, we were really proud to get that. I like to see it displayed more because that's part of how we tell the story. And so I guess the short answer is I think it's something we were open to. We've talked about it, but we got to be careful on you can't do everything and you can't say yes to everything, because at some point your ballpark is going to look like a mishmash of stuff. And I think too often we react to things instead of really planning things. And that is my only caution, is being careful about, well, let me say this, because I think it's probably going to come up at some point. I think we need to be careful about, I mean, I love celebrating our past because I believe that it brings people back to their childhood and it's emotional and for all the reasons I said earlier. But we got to be careful to balance that with where we're going in the future. That is critical. We've got to create new fans. Not that talking about the past prohibits us from creating new fans, but it needs to be done in the proper balance. I don't have that answer of what that proper balance is, but I do think that the New York Giants is part of who we are. And I think that story should be told much better than it's being told today.
Mario, before I let Norm show his little thing, just so I'm sure you're aware, next year is a huge year in franchise history. San Francisco, 65 years, and the New York Giants, 140. So, Norm, did you want to just show Mario what?
When I think of next year, I think of the three Lou brothers playing out in the outfield. I think that's the anniversary of that as well.
This is,
60 years.
you know, this whole thing is also, we're not trying to New Yorkize New York, San Francisco, if you know what I mean. This is just, we're very proud of the roots here, and 95% of the people in this room right now are true San Francisco Giant fans. So, Norm, you
I'm
want
all
to just,
set, Gary.
Go
Hi,
ahead.
Mario. Mario, I'm Norm Coleman. We have actually met a couple of times before. I have a few cousins who were friends of yours, Lance Blanchie, and my cousin Sam Friedman. And the thing I want to say before I even start is thank you so much for being here. From what I hear from my cousins, you know, Sam is gone now, but they always thought of you as a stand-up guy. And that's very important to me. And I already see it in you and the things that you're saying now. And what I'd like to do is just show you something in terms of what you just said in terms of balancing. I'm going to share my screen and show you this part of Oracle Park. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, so what that is, oh, wait a minute, why? Just move it. If you go in the left dual gate,
Yep.
you see the stairs on the right goes up to the ballpark. This area over here is the vault. It's a museum of both SF Giants and New York Giants history. It's closed this year because of COVID. And then you see this wall over here to the left. What you might not realize or remember is that this wall is already dedicated to the New York Giants. You can see here, I'm circling it with my cursor, the Eddie Grant plaque. Over here is the left field dual cameo and plaque. What I'm thinking is, if you were to take that very same wall, I mean, that wall is desolate right now. No one goes there, no one looks at it. It's a forgotten part of the ballpark. I would venture to say that no one watching right now, including you and Pat Gallagher, even knew the Eddie Grant plaque was there.
I know where I'm going tomorrow morning to check it out. That's for sure.
And so, wouldn't it be interesting if the wall looked like this?
Yeah, no, it's yeah.
And if you took those NYs, I don't know how big they are, if they went on the top of the wall or something, and then people could come and you'd actually draw attention to a unused part of the ballpark. And the beauty of it is, once they're done looking at the plaques, they might just want to go into the vault and see the museum.
Yeah, no, actually, it is a good idea. And I'm being serious. I am going to walk down there tomorrow morning. The vault, I will tell you that right now, I'm not sure what the future of the vault is. The problem with the vault, in my opinion, is it's in the part of our, it's just not easy to get to. It's kind of hidden away, and you hate to tell a story in this little crevice of the building where it's not easy for fans to get to. So I think we have to rethink that part of it. But I like your idea of honoring New York there, because I really want to find a place for those Polo Ground letters too. It's it's a shame having things that we're not sharing with our fans, or showing them what we have. Because
Mario, you muted yourself by accident. There you go.
sorry, even our archives, and Rick knows this as well. It's like, you know, if you're gonna have archives, you got to share them. You can't, just to hoard them and not look at them, it defeats the purpose of why to have them, at least for a franchise. So I think this is all good food for thought to figure out how to do this. But I do like that idea. I'm literally going to walk down there tomorrow and take a peek at it. And Russ, you're coming with me.
Norm, thank you so much for embellishing
you.
my
Thanks,
idea
Norm.
and for that was great, better than I could have even thought of.
And thanks for
Norm,
the comments as well.
Norm, you want to also make your other thing, and then we'll go to Steve and then Mars.
Okay, so Mario, this one here is a little bit more touchy.
I'm ready for it. Go ahead.
Okay, hold on, let me get my other thing here. Now, and I know that you are going to get a lot of questions today. People are going to ask you about naming the ballpark Willie Mays Field at Oracle Park. And I already know what the answer is. The answer is because Larry Bear was on and he was asked this, and I know that Mars sent you an email, and the answer is we've already done enough for Willie Mays there. We have 24 Willie Mays Plaza. We have the statue. We have 24 palm trees. We have the outfield wall is 24 feet high. And we have a contract with Oracle for the naming rights to the ballpark. And so what I would like to do is suggest an idea that will not interfere with your naming rights, but can do something for the Giants and for us. And my idea is, hold on here, is in center field, to the right and left of the batter's eye, you have a mural of Willie Mays making the catch and the ensuing throw. And then next to it, you have 24 Willie Mays Plaza written there on your wall. And the idea of this is not to do something for Willie Mays. The idea of this is to do something for me, do something for Gary, do something for everyone in the New York Giants Society, do something for our kids, our grandkids, our nieces and our nephews, our friends and their kids, and Giants fans who actually would like to remember Willie Mays. And the Giants should want to do this too in terms of the Willie Mays legacy, just what you were just talking about. And the thing about the 24 Willie Mays Plaza is if you were to go and talk to casual fans, walk into the 415 club area and talk to the fans there and say, what's the address of Oracle Park? You'd be surprised by how few of them know it's 24 Willie Mays Plaza. And none of them will know there's a 24-foot high wall next to them, or there's 24 palm trees out there. The 24 Willie Mays Plaza thing was it was a brilliant idea in honoring Willie Mays and a great marketing tool for the Giants, but that name recognition is eroding. And so this is one way for the Giants to put 24 Willie Mays Plaza back out on the forefront, but also to show fans something that is iconic in baseball. It's not just any little thing in baseball. It is the catch. It is the most iconic catch in baseball history. If you look at the ensuing throw part right here, and you project that onto an image of the Polo Grounds, you will find proportionately, he's just about right where he would be when he's making the catch and the throw. And so this is something for me that I think, yeah, you've done a lot for Willie Mays, but you go into Oracle Park and maybe within a half hour before the game begins, you are all of a sudden overwhelmed with a sensory overload of sound and sight, especially for night games with all the advertisements there, all the things you're looking at, all the noise you're hearing, and you look around and you are not seeing Giants history at all. You can go look at the numbers down the left field line, and people, the common fan doesn't even know half of them are. You're looking at the three championship pennants in left field there on the wall there, and they're faded, and you can't even tell what they say hardly. This is a chance to sort of give something to the fans who are not sensory overload fans, but the fans like us who have the traditions, want to look out and see that, and want to tell our kids about it, and want to keep this story going. And it's so simple, and it's so cost efficient for the Giants, and everyone watching the game on TV is going to see 24 Willie Mays Plaza, no matter where they are. You're a Cub fan watching the Cubs play, they will know Oracle Park is at 24 Willie Mays Plaza. You're back in the you're putting it up front again. And I just think this is so important. And I realize it's a passion plea, and you can realize that I'm one of those fans you're talking about who is emotional about the Giants and Willie Mays and the whole thing. But I take it, when I think about the Giants, I think beyond that. I think about what's good for the Giants also. And I honestly believe this is good for the Giants. And so that's my plea for that one. And thank you for listening.
I'm going to try to, I really want to do something for you, Norm, but let me see if I can respond to that. Because I have been thinking, knowing this was going to come up, because of course I'm not going to sit here today and say, hey, we're going to do it and promise something that we can't deliver. But to me, here's kind of how I look at it. First of all, I love Willie Mays. You know, Willie's the greatest player of all time, no doubt. And do we have a gate named after him? Yes. Do we have an address named after him? Yes. Do we have a statue right in front of on the main corner? Yes. All that's there is never going away. The question is, it's kind of like what you just said about, I appreciate what you said about the sensory overload, because that's kind of thing in a lot of sports right now. And at what point is it just kind of, we're just adding to it instead of telling the story we want to tell? And I guess my question or my comment is, I'm not sure, this isn't so, in my opinion, I don't know if it's so much about Willie Mays as it is, what are the things that need to be there in the future, 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now, when Willie's not here? What things as an organization should we be pointing to in our history that someone says, boy, they did the right thing back then? And I always, that's why my first instinct, Norm, is that, yes, it's not, maybe it is in your mind, because Willie's Willie, but I'm not sure so much about Willie as it is what things we want to highlight in to a future generation. And let's face it, to some, many our fans today never saw Willie play. To them, Buster Posey will be their Willie Mays. That's going to happen. And there will be other guys we haven't even drafted yet will be somebody else's Willie Mays. That's part of the length and the beauty of our business. So I guess it's a long way of saying we need to be, in my opinion, careful about making a decision on something that feels right now, as opposed to something that feels right 100 years from now. And I think that's kind of the way any organization should approach something. Now, with that said, the idea of doing something more for Willie in a subtle way or some in a meaningful way, is there something there? I don't have to be sold on that one because Willie's like no other. The question is, what's the right thing to do that somebody in the future will say, I get it. Now I know why they did it. And to me, and everything we do, answering the question why is critical in every decision we make, because we can't just make things because it feels right at the moment. It's like, how many times do we feel a certain way and then 3 days later, it's like you cool down. So good thing I didn't send that email, I think that's kind of how I approach this, is what's the right way to point back to our history? Is Willie the right way? Is that the right message we should be sending? Or is there something else in our history? Now, with all that said, there's something special about the catch, and there's something special about Willie Mays and the catch. So it's interesting the way you presented it. But those are my initial comments. But take to heart what I said about the Buster Posey piece of this, because, and I don't mean him literally, but, we've been around for what, you guys know, 130 something years, 138 years, 140 years?
139.
Okay, 139. There's a lot of players that played 139 years. So if we make a decision now, it's important for me to think about 40 years from now when someone's looking back and Oracle Park is still there. Are we pointing as a franchise, are we pointing to the right things to present who the San Francisco Giants or the Giants franchise is all about? and correct, finding that right balance, which I don't have the answer to, by the way, I think is really important in any decision that we would make.
Thank you, Mario. And just one thing I'd like to ask you to keep in mind also is, and you already know this, is looking at that catch and ensuing throw as being timeless. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that the Giants want to hold on to for as long as they exist and pass on to my kid and the kid after that. And the great thing about that is that's one thing we have on video that
Totally
you can show
agree.
people over and over again. And I believe it will last.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. There's something special about that play and the story behind it, and that he has told and will be there for generations always here. So it's funny when you were presenting what you showed, I was focused more on the damn batter's eye, because that, it's got this beautiful green block there of, wish we could put something there. Because
Mario,
I can see Willie with his catch.
the first one I made had him up on the batting eye there.
Yeah.
And it really was beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, I hope you understand at least my comments on that.
Oh, no, I do, and I appreciate it. And I don't want to take everybody else's time now. I want people to ask questions also, but thank you
Great.
so much for giving me the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Norm. Steve and then Mars. Steve?
Thank you so much for coming on, Mario. And Gary and Norm, you made great presentations, which was two of the things that I wanted to talk about, but at this point, it's not necessary. Gary, you and I well know that this society is now starting its 11th year. We finished 10 years. Gary, I mean, I'm looking at the people that are on tonight. We have giant personnel here. Gary has created during the pandemic more than 80 Zooms. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how great they've been week in and week out. This New York Giant Preservation Society is now national. It's all over the country. I mean, he gets calls from writers, authors, baseball personnel. It's become a very big deal. And like Gary said, we try to keep it going. Even though it's San Francisco, we want the New York end there as well. And that's why these two guys, I think, broached this topic tonight. And hopefully something will come of it. I said it before when there was only a few people. Gaylord Perry is 84 years old today.
Today, that's right.
Those of you that are not aware of that, that's a big deal. And any of the New York people that are in here tonight, if anybody gets a chance to go to the Jackie Robinson Museum and maybe report back to us, that would be certainly a great thing, which is now just opened up to the public about a week ago in Lower Manhattan. Two other points, only basically because you worked for Eddie Logan, and we've been going after this for a long time, that there's nothing there, and I'm not taking it away from Mike Murphy. He's been there for 100 years. He was there, and that's his clubhouse. But there's got to be something somewhere for Eddie Logan. Now, Gary and I have talked about making our own plaque. When I go to San Francisco, and all the years I've gone, I always get a club pass. I could see myself taking a nice plaque with me into the ballpark and hanging it up on the club level somewhere and getting away with it. But I'm obviously not going to do that. So this is just another topic. I mean, do you name the visiting clubhouse after Eddie Logan? I mean, the Logan family, not only Ed, who's on tonight, his dad, Eddie, and his dad, Fred, were there for many, many, many years. And if you ask Murphy or any of the Bat Boys, someone like Quinlan, they will tell you how wonderful it was to know Eddie Logan. So that's topic number one. Topic number two, one of the members of our society called me today. He might have called you too, Gary. I don't know if you picked up. He's not on tonight. He had a wonderful idea. And you mentioned quickly, Mario, you talked about promotions. Now, I don't know how this could be handled, only because of the age. We just recently lost another New York Giant. There are now 10 left. What would be so wrong, or could this be done? And by next year, it may only be 9 or 8, who knows? But if there's 10 left, to invite them back to a game. Now, of the 10, maybe only 4 would be able to travel. Someone like Eddie Brazil or Billy Gardner, Jackie Brand. I don't know about the rest of them. To have a, welcome back to the 10 remaining New York Giants. It's the 65th year in San Francisco. I mean, this could be done pretty easily. And the ones that can't make it, pictures on the board or maybe a phone call. I don't know. I don't want to tell you how to handle it. But
I love the idea already. I
and
love
then
it.
one last thing: does anybody here, other than Bill Klink, Rich Rogers? I bet you don't know the answer to this one. Know why Clayton Kershaw wears number 22?
Don Mueller.
He grew up as a fan of Will Clark, and I saw the Will Clark picture there, retirement number. Go figure that one. That's a good one.
Steve, what you said about the 10 Giants,
Yes.
Mario, just for your edification, we had Tom Rigney on, Bill Rigney's son.
Sure.
He's a very famous fiddler there. He could do the national anthem. And
Yeah, we've had him out before.
Barbara Ott could roll out the first pitch. Mel Ott's daughter is still
Lives in
alive.
Tucson. Yes.
And she's, really with it. And she's an icon. She spoke to our group. It was fabulous.
Thank you.
I love the whole idea. There's something about the New York Giants, and maybe we can wrap all this together. And you hope that everyone's healthy enough to be out here. But the idea of just having them, whoever can be here, and it's all part of telling the story, reminding everyone about where we came from. There's something to that. And as you're talking, I'm writing down notes and still looking at that wall that Norm showed. I'm trying to look at that wall without putting an advertising sign on it, though.
Great job, Norm. Great job, Norm. You got him going, Norm.
No, it's good. Hey, I do have one story because you mentioned Eddie Logan. So you mentioned Pat Quillen a few times and Eddie Logan. So quick story on this. So Eddie Logan ran the Giants clubhouse, and in the visit on one day we went into the clubhouse, Pat and I, during the game, or maybe it was pregame, I can't remember. And we went in every locker, and we thought the lockers didn't look good. They were just, all the stuff was hung up in the back. So we took everybody's jersey and hung it on the first hook with the name on the outside, put the cap over the hook. So the clubhouse looked like it just looked good, Well, when Eddie came back in, he was not happy. It's not the way you do it. And but he appreciated what we were trying to do, but it was like, what are you kids doing? But when I think of Eddie Logan, it's like, and even as a kid, I didn't appreciate at the time that, he was with the team in New York, and that his dad, the whole family lineage, I didn't know that when I was 12 years old. But you think about it now, that's a story to be told. There's history there. And so anyway, I'm all I can hear is sign the balls, fellas.
Mario, you may not know that Eddie Logan is in the Cactus League Hall of Fame.
Really?
As is Horace Stoneham. So you add that to your thoughts, please. And thanks, Steve, for that pitch.
Mars, you're up.
And by the way, living Bat Boys, me and Bobby Weinstein.
Right.
Mars, you're up.
Mario, thanks for joining us. I don't know if you remember that I emailed you about Willie Mays Field about 2 months ago.
I've gotten a few. Yep.
So I want to address that. And I also wanted to ask, are you related to Joseph Alioto?
We're all distant cousins, and all the Aliotos are from a town in Sicily about the size of Oracle Park. So in a way, we're all kind of related. But like I said, they live on the top of the hill. I grew up on the bottom of the hill. But I always got a good table location in a restaurant for some reason. But I only met him once. Very impressive. Very impressive. For the former mayor Joe. But in the Alioto family, there's a lot of Joes. So, but anyway.
Back to my plight.
Yeah.
I've written to you about, and there's precedence for where I go a little bit further than Norm. And Norm and I are pretty much on the same page. I like what he's attempted to do, but I go a little bit further. And one of the reasons why I turned 75 last week. So I saw the last Giant Dodger game in the Polo Ground, and I saw the last game at Candlestick because I was a partial season ticket holder. But back to naming rights now. Now we're not changing Oracle Park, but going a step further from Norm, I would like to see Willie Mays Field on the picture of him making the catch and the throw. And now the precedent for that is Ricky Henderson Field at whatever the Oakland Coliseum is called now. So, of course, Mays was a far greater ball player, and yet they honor Ricky Henderson with Ricky Henderson Field with just a picture on the outfield wall, or it's either on the infield dirt. I forget. But you know, the thing about why this is so important. Let me ask you, what is the face of the New York Yankees even to this day? Could you answer that question for me?
Like I could give you a lot of faces. DiMaggio, Ruth, you know,
Anybody?
right?
And you know, and how many young people?
Yogi.
Well, Babe Ruth is the face in anybody's mind, you know, unless they're thinking of Derek Jeter or Aaron
Right.
Judge, modern day baseball. But Babe Ruth created the face of the Yankees, the house that Ruth built. Willie Mays, greatest player ever, without changing the name of Oracle Park. I've been on this campaign. I don't know if I was the only or the first one, but all I want is the homage before, while Willie Mays is still mortally with us, to show Willie Mays Field, and Oracle Park could still have the name embedded in the concrete. And I don't know if you make that final decision, but this is my death wish, if you will.
Yeah. You're putting a lot of pressure on me. Here's my question. If it was okay, so what would you call it?
I would say what I would like to call it is Willie Mays Field at Oracle Park.
But what would you call it if you were talking to somebody?
Well, if I was talking to somebody, I would always say, I'm going to Willie Mays Field today.
Well, that's the problem. That's exactly why it concerns us, because it's not so much what's on the. It's not. I mean, look, I totally get it, because I'm with you, because I know, but you know, it's not so much about war. Yeah, what is the Oakland Coliseum? It's what is it, Russ? O.co or whatever. I mean, it depends on what these contracts say, and you know, it's. I hate to put the business side into this, but it is a big part of it, and because we know that if it's Willie Mays Field at Oracle Park, everyone's going to call it Willie Mays Field. So if you're Mr. Oracle sending us a check, you kind of feel like there's a breach. So those are the types of things we have to look at, which is why I mentioned earlier that the real question to me is not so much whether the field's after him or not, is what's the right amount of what's the right balance of what we should be doing for Willie or for any other great player. And the question is, with that statue and with the name and all the other things we've done, is that enough, or should there be something else? Or maybe we shouldn't have done that and we should have done the field, but we kind of are where we are, right?
Bear in mind, I'm the only one that's calling it Willie Mays Field.
Well, yeah. Oh,
That's just me. I'm not even asking them to change the name in the embedded concrete.
right.
They can keep it Oracle Park, but when you walk in the ballpark, it says Willie Mays Field. It's still Oracle Park. And, you know, I know it's all about the money, you know, and yet Larry Ellison went to Austin. So he's not even a patriot, a Bay Area patriot anymore. He's a defender.
Yeah, it's not so much about the money; it's what has already been promised, you know, to others. But the real issue here is, and I'm not disagreeing with you, is if we all agree that Willie is the greatest of all time so far, what's the right amount of tribute do we pay to Willie? And I agree with you. If there's more to be done, let's do it while he's with us. But the question is, I kind of go back to what I said earlier, it all has to be done in balance, you know, and I think that is really the trick. And by the way, there's no real answer to this. It's because it's subjective to a lot of people. I would think, maybe not to this group, but the concept in general.
Thanks, Mars. Bill Clank, you're up. Bill, you gotta unmute. Bill, unmute.
I'm unmuted. You know, I live by the mute and I die by the mute. But Mario, you're really understating yourself. If you went to someone who knew little about San Francisco, there's two iconic names in San Francisco: Mays and Alioto. Everybody, no matter where they're from, knows what Mays and Alioto means. Might be a distant cousin, but take those props.
Well, it really shouldn't be Alioto Field at Oracle Park. I'll give you
No,
that
we're not
one.
gonna do that. We're not going to do that. But the other thing, and I love what, what the guys have already said, but there's an old saying, less is more. And I think this subject came up before, instead of a naming of the field. And I love what, the business on the outfield wall. How about just an enormous, I mean, really big, just plain 2-4 on the field, in the dirt, carved out in center field. I mean, that is an idea that you don't have to say anything. It speaks for itself.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because you're right. When you say 24, you think of nothing else but Willie Mays.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
Not anywhere else in sport.
Right.
Well, I'm prejudiced there. There are some other 20.
Well, they're probably, maybe, yeah, but I
So-
totally agree. And there's, look, to the extent that something else at some point is done, I'm kind of with you. The number is a kind of a cool way to do it because it says a lot without saying a lot.
Mhm.
I wanted to pick
What
up
happened
two.
to Pac Bell?
I'm sorry?
What happened to Pac Bell? You may change Oracle in 2 years.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah.
The Diamondbacks, they're on their third or fourth stadium name
Yeah.
now.
I still call him the Bob because it's easier.
Yeah, the Bob, yeah.
Yeah, it's still always the Bob back there on here.
Right,
But
Bill, finish up, Bill.
I wanted to follow up on something that Gary said with the wall and the idea of the plaques on the wall out in left field.
Right.
As much as we get into sensory overload sometimes, what people don't seem to get over, we're evidence of it right here, is auditory overload. What I'm getting at is if you have the plaques, but some way where the fan, when they see these 12 plaques up on the wall, can touch a button. And guess what happens?
Video.
The story of that player is told, and we have their language, we have their words, what they said. So when you push the button, it lights up. Of course, in orange and black, the plaque lights up, and Willie Mays or Willie McCovey or whoever talks to you, gives you some words. That will get people to want to see that.
Yeah, and I think in that,
hear things.
yeah, I appreciate you saying that because I think with the technology that we have today, we can do things like that, and it's come up quite often. And as Rick Swig knows, I mean, whether it's a museum or something, to be able to bring to life these names of the past through technology in the right way without it becoming too far down that road, there is something to that. I will say that with the retired numbers in our ballpark, I do think that's an area that we need to rethink how we present those, because at some point it's just getting a little busy. There's a lot. We got the remember 51. There's just a lot of stuff up there. It's like we want to tell everybody everything at the same time, and it's getting a little. And it's one of the things we've brought up a lot, and even when we retired Will Clark's number, this summer, it's like, okay, move them over and put 22 in there. But at some point, is there a better way to? Because again, that's part of telling a story about our past through these players. Is there a better way to present that? And I do think at some point we need to take a look at that, and as a big major refresh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill. Mario, I'm going to bring you to the present right now. First ballot Hall of Famer Buster Posey. Where will his statue end up?
Well, that's a good question because we got to get some more land. But I don't know. I do know one thing. He is a first ballot, Hall of Famer, and I would think, and I love the statues we have around the ballpark. I just wish, and I know Pat feels the same way. I just wish our plot of land was a lot bigger because we could have done and continue to do so much more. To go to some of these other ballparks and see these. I just love statues because it's that you talk about telling a story before you even walk in the gate. But I think it's it's the same thing we've been talking about regarding Mays. What's the right way at the time, whoever the next person is going to be that's going to think about these things. think about Buster Posey. How is he going to be remembered? And whether that's 5 years from now or 20 years from now, that's not a light decision. You can't just, well, there's a wall, stick a 28 up there and call it a day. We got to rethink, how do you tell the story of who Buster Posey was in his years with the Giants? So the answer is I don't know, because we don't have a lot of space, but he will be recognized, that's for sure. Now keep in mind, across from McCovey Cove, we have the Mission Rock project, which is under construction. And at some point, although we like to call it a new neighborhood with the buildings, that is all going to be part of the Giants experience, we hope. And there may be other ways that we can tell the Giants story besides just within the gates of our ballpark.
Thank
But
you, Mario.
it's a long way of saying we don't have the answer to that yet.
I wanted to bring you, instead of talking all about the past, I wanted to bring you up with Buster. So we're going to go to Harvey and then Ed Freer. Harvey? Unmute, Harvey.
That was the first thing. That's my first note. Mario, thank you very much for being here tonight. I had a brief conversation with you in 2015. I'm sure you'll remember. It was only yesterday. It was after the Giants brought the third trophy, actually the eighth World Series championship, but the third World Series trophy to New York. And you and I had just a brief conversation. Somehow we wound up in just a few of us in the room. And I pointed out to you that when everybody was talking about Willie being a 5-tool player, I said, no, he's a 6-tool player. He was a 6-tool player, because nobody could see the field like Willie Mays. Nobody could position players like Willie Mays. And I had a whole load of questions I was going to ask you. They're irrelevant. After Norm's presentation and Mar's presentation, I want to make a couple of points. The Major League Baseball renamed the World Series MVP trophy after Willie Mays. And they did that because of the catch and the throw. It is not merely an iconic video. It defines maybe what baseball is all about. Oh, a lot of guys hit home runs. Willie hit 660, but there was only one catch and one throw. And it saved the World Series, the last World Series for the New York Giants. When a couple of weeks ago, the Mets finally got on board and retired Willie's number. And he only played a couple of years for the Mets, but they retired that number because they understood this is more than just a player. We had as a guest James Hirsch. He wrote a marvelous biography of Willie. And, and you guys brought a bunch of those books and gave it to us in 2010 when you brought the World Series trophy. I had read the book 9 months earlier when it came out. And in the book, Mr. Hirsch places Willie in the historical context of the United States, of the civil rights movement, of unifying the country. He was the first African-American player, black ball player that brought Negro League type baseball to the West Coast. He is more than just Willie Mays per se. And I know you made a reference. You started to say there may be greater ball players. Shohei Ohtani is fantastic. Mike Trout is terrific. Aaron Judge, we see him here. I'm in New York. I love watching Aaron Judge hit home runs. There's only one Willie Mays. And I'm not saying that just because I was 8.5 when I saw Willie play the first time at the Polo Grounds. It's not holding on to my childhood. God knows I'm not holding on to anything with that regard. But I don't think, I hear what you're saying. I understand all the business issues. Willie Mays is one of a kind. And Norm's presentation puts it in a proper perspective. And in answer to what you were saying, Mario, I don't think you can say the words Willie Mays more than it's already said. 24 palm trees, that's nice. But the kids who come to the game and say, who is Willie Mays? They're not going to say, why do we have 24 palm trees?
Well, I let me comment on one thing you said that I agree with everything you just said, is that Willie was more than a player, because I think because he was a personality too. And it's, he wasn't just a great baseball player, but I remember back in, when I was with him, we went to Houston when I think he was Barry was chasing 660 at the time. I remember when President Bush Sr. was there, and just the way that Willie, on that particular night, not only the respect for the president's office, because he's always said, politics, I don't take sides. They're all the same. It's a matter of respect. But at the same time, he had to do an interview that night with a crew from Japan who wanted to interview him, and to see how he was able to deal with this crew, with the customs of the Japanese customs, I was blown away how Willie was just in tune. The point is, it's the whole package of Willie that makes him so special, which is why all of us think about him so differently, because it's not just home runs and throwing a guys out of third. There's something different about him. The way he tells jokes, the way he laughs, his high tone of excitement when he talks. That's all part of what makes Willie Mays, the character of Willie Mays, and iconic in our game. And when he got the Presidential Medal of Honor, I mean, he is more than just a baseball player. So that's the part I totally agree with. But it kind of goes back to, to what extent do we do more, and what's that right feel? Because it's not so much about what Ohtani or the other players in the future. It's for what Willie brought to our game, and to, in his, he's still with us, thankfully. But for what he accomplished, have we honored him and his legacy in the proper way? And because that's still a subjective thing, right? But I agree with everything you said, because he's bigger than life. And I've said this so many times. And Pat, I know you said this in the past. If you're in a banquet and Willie Mays walks in the room, you'll never see him, but you can sense when he walked in. That's the kind of buzz he has. When he's around, he's got that aura about him. So he is completely special. It's hard to pin down exactly the right thing to do in a position that we're in, when you're trying to look at the long horizon of where the game's going and our franchise is going. But I don't disagree with anyone, with what anyone has said tonight about their love and respect for Willie. That's for sure.
Thanks, Mario.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mario, how are you for time?
Happy hour hasn't started yet. I'm good.
All right. Ed Freer,
Are
you're
you
up.
kidding? I could talk on that. I love this stuff.
All right. Ed Freer, you're up.
All right, thank you, Mario. I have a question more to do with inside baseball business. You mentioned earlier about, bringing young fans into the game. And one of the things out here in the East Coast we're particularly upset about is all the playoff games end around midnight. When you guys get together with other teams and whatnot, is there any discussion about, or is that just left off the table, we're getting more young fans into the game?
It's, you know what, we talk about it all the time, especially with respect to our team and what time games ought to start, because you've got this, you've got the TV folks and the media folks who, they're looking at prime time. But on the other hand, how can we talk about appealing to a younger audience if it's a school night and we have a game that's going 11 o'clock at night? That doesn't make sense either. This year, and maybe we did it the last 2 years, but this year right now on night games between Monday and Thursday, we start at 6:45 because it ends earlier. It's great, but
And
it's
we love
6:45.
that here, by the way.
Yeah, but in the ballpark, we have about 14 people there, and so that's a problem. On the other hand, there are more people staying towards the end of the game too. So we're trying to find a time that works for our business and getting people to the ballpark sooner. But I think the other thing too, and we talked about this morning in a meeting that I was in. I think too often we measure success in our game by how many tickets we sell, rather than how many fans are engaged with what we're doing.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Just like you're saying now. I mean, you may not buy a ticket, but you're watching every single game. You saw me and my mom on TV last weekend. That is just as engaged as someone who's buying a ticket and physically at the ballpark. So we need to think beyond the ballpark and how do we attract more people to follow us and engage with us differently. And one of them, if we're going to go to a younger fan, is the game times. I totally agree. But the other thing that we struggle with all the time, and I don't have the answer to this, and frankly, nobody does. And I'm even scared to say this because it's going to open up a can of worms, but I'm going to say it anyway. And oftentimes, I think we got to get clear whether or not we're trying to change the game to appeal to the next generation of fans, or should we be trying to convince the next generation of fans how beautiful our game is? And, you know, I think sometimes we're trying to change who we are to appeal to that next customer instead of trying to get that next customer to really understand what our game is. At the end of the day, it's going to be a combination of that. But if we don't find younger fans, and if we don't get younger fans to enjoy our game, they may not enjoy it the way I did. I have 4 kids. They're not going to sit and watch 9 innings of baseball. Well, maybe mine will because they grew up with it. But kids in their 20s, they're off doing other things. I mean, how many times have you been to a game where you got a lot of folks at the social area in the ballpark and the game is going on in the background? They're not even watching the game. And I remember when we opened our ballpark in 2000, there was always be articles or fans complaining, oh, everybody's drinking Chardonnay, they're not even watching the game. Yeah, but if that's the way they want to enjoy the game, that's okay. Because as we've always said, this is the fun business. Our job is to make you happy. If you want to be happy by coming to our game and spending the whole time in the club level at the bar, and that's how you find enjoyment, that's okay. But we need to be cognizant of what you're looking for, because what the new customer is looking for is not what I'm looking for. And as Pat and Russ both know, back in 1993, we started a program, We're Listening. Well, we can't just say we're listening if we're not actually listening. So we got to understand what that new customer is looking for and try to start appealing to what their interests are, so that we can stay healthy and also be relevant and for that next customer.
Thank you, Ed.
Continued.
Jeff,
Yeah,
Jeff,
definitely will
you're
be
up.
continued.
Jeff, you're up. Unmute. There you
Hear you
go.
the first time. With all the talk of that we've been discussing with the history, not only both of the New York, but of the San Francisco Giants, I always wondered, since the park opened, there are areas where you see some of the history, but there are also other areas, such as the club level, where a lot of people don't necessarily get to. You've got a lot of memorabilia and photos, etc. But up on the outer concourse of the upper deck, you've got, uniforms and photos and stuff. I always thought that there were 2 other areas where you could utilize some murals or more photographs as people are coming in. When you come in the Willie Mays Gate, you've got the ramp and you've got the huge escalator, and then you've got the bigger escalator to go up to the upper deck.
Right.
The wall on the left side of both escalators is completely barren. It's basically concrete. At minimum, I think those walls should be painted, the beams like black and the walls maybe orange. But I think those would be perfect spots, especially the one going up to the upper deck, where you could put, because it's longer, that escalator is longer, where you could put photos, maybe some murals, and display more of the history of the team. Because I think once you get up to the upper level, if you're not going on to the club level, if you're not fortunate enough to spend that extra money to go onto that level, once you get up to the upper level, you do see some of the things. But I think once you're up there, you've got the food carts and the concession stands, and it gets more crowded, and people really, I don't think necessarily notice that. So I always thought that maybe the escalator walls of the 2 main escalators coming in would be a good area to display more history.
Yeah, Jeff, good idea. I wrote that one down. That I agree with you. And the other thing is, even at Willie Mays Plaza, we are going to spend some CapEx money this year. Even at Willie Mays Plaza, when you walk in, it always looks good until you get on the ramp and start walking up, and it's dark as can be. And to lighten that, I mean, it's almost like you're opening your front door to your home and the lights are off. We want to make that a little more appealing. But I like what you said about the size of those escalators. The other thing we're trying to do, and we hope to do more of this next year, and I mentioned earlier about the archives. We have a lot of archives. I like to get the archives out in public more often, even if it's just a table, and say, come by and see the, the bat that Barry hit and look at it or touch it. We got to tell the story through these items that we have. And so anyway, I think you're going to see a little bit more of that next year, but dressing up the building more with paint, photos, whether it's current players or past players, is a good idea. It's on my list.
How about park, the center field wall? Instead of having it the Kale Garden or whatever, have it Monument Park like Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, the Kale Garden, I'm not, we got to do something out there too. And I think one of the things that what you're all touching on is, at some point, if you don't have a vision for what the ballpark's going to look like, it becomes a mishmash of stuff, right? And I think we got to sometimes step back and just take another look at what the presentation looks like, and look at it's easy to point at everything and say, here's all the glass is always half empty, but there's a lot of good things going on there too, and we're trying to figure out what just the right ones to. It's really, where do you put your resources and your energy, because you can't do everything, and how do you prioritize things, and especially since the pandemic and the smaller staff and just how I'm just trying to get fans back to the ballpark right now. I mean, trying to get people back. I mean, our downtown in San Francisco is only 30% occupied, the office buildings. That's a problem, and one that I can't fix, but it's affecting our business. And, so we have a lot of priorities, and the goal is, how do you prioritize where you put your time and effort? But without the escalator is a good one.
Paul Ellis, you're up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mario. I really think that when Gary started this off, I think there's a question, at least for now, of timing. The 140th anniversary of the New York Giants is next year, 65th of San Francisco. So I think the fact is, as he said, with 10 New York Giants still left, this is going to be a critical time to try to get those guys out there to reconnect with the fans and the team's history. That, along with Norm's idea of plaques along wherever you can put them to recognize the Hall of Fame Giants that have played, and maybe even the names of some of those other New York Giants somewhere else, if it's just even a list of those players, would be really, really important to do it in the same year. That's a motivating factor for getting those guys to even want to come out to San Francisco, knowing that something special is taking place. And as a member of the New York Giants baseball group, I would like to see if that, whatever happens, if the Giants would be willing to, we'd be our expense for the tickets perhaps, but a block of tickets reserved for us as guys who are lifelong Giants fans who want to come out, because we don't get to San Francisco that often, at least I don't, to be able to come out for something really special.
Right. No, Paul, I appreciate it. And look, I've got the New York Giant thing on top of my list here, and I'm going to talk to we're just starting to think about next year now as far as what we're going to do. I don't know if I can do everything, but the idea of getting those players out here, if they're still able to, and honoring them and telling that story, there's something to that. Believe me, if we're going to go in that direction, I have a feeling this group is going to be the first to know. So
Mario, I got a quick question regarding the off season, San Francisco related. First of all, I collect replica stadiums. And since it's the 65th anniversary, I've never seen a Seal Stadium replica. Would the Giants consider, doing that next year as a giveaway? I think that'd be a great idea.
I've never seen one either. I like that idea, but I hate to put the button there.
Oh, go ahead.
But I like to do it for a reason. What's the purpose? Is it because it's I don't know. I guess we can always make one up.
I guess the purpose is that they started 65 years ago, and that's the stadium they played in.
Oh, I see. Because so get it around the 65 years.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I was there. One parting shot, Mario. When I was a bat boy in 57, I often played catch with Willie.
Yeah.
And he didn't hold back with me. He threw it hard enough to make me drop the ball because it would smack into my, and he got a big kick out of that. And then he would say, Logue, stick to the drums, because I was playing drums in the he knew I wasn't going to be a ball player, but he got the biggest kick out of that.
Well, he's that little sidearm, the way he throws it, and the ball
Yeah, that
always
little
goes.
sidearm thing.
Yeah,
And it
and
was
the
like a
ball's rising
fastball.
on you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it
It's,
smacked my glove and it hurt, and I dropped the ball and he just laughed,
yeah, he's a pretty special guy. It's unfortunately he hasn't been at the ballpark, since the pandemic too much, although we're in touch all the time, but we got to get him back. I know he wants to come back soon to frankly, I think he's more comfortable at the ballpark than he is at his own house. This is his home.
Mario,
Well,
I hope I haven't bored you guys tonight.
about the off season.
Yeah.
I assume this is a tremendously important off season on and off the field, because I'm sure you want to see Russ, selling a lot more tickets, for next season. How crucial is this off season to the organization?
Well, there's two sides of that. The first one obviously is the player piece of this, which is the same every offseason with every team. You kind of want to retool your team and repackage it and present it and get everyone get everyone excited about the new season. From the business standpoint, I have some concerns, but it's not so much about the Giants' concerns. What I'm kind of concerned about, and people always ask there's a lot that keeps me up at night, but one of the things that lately is, I think since the pandemic, so many of us have gotten accustomed to a different way of living. And as you guys know, we have the best broadcasters in what we do. I always say when you're sitting at home watching a game, the commute's easy, the food's cheaper, the restrooms are clean, and it's just easy, right? And after the game's over, I'm in bed 3 minutes later. There's something about the pandemic changed the way all of us live. Part of what we need to do on the marketing side is convincing fans that watching sports live is really what this business is all about. That's the whole experience of being a sports fan, is being there live. The thing that we're concerned about, and Russ knows is better than anyone, is, when we all grew up, a season ticket meant, and Pat, this is his line, is I have to use this as I'm looking at his box, but you got to sell everything you can before you throw the first pitch. And we say that, and we never forgot that, because that is the foundation of our business, is letting people, knowing that people are committed to us. If they want to come to a game in August, they're buying that ticket in April, not an hour before the game or a second before the game. Through technology, you don't have to do that anymore. You literally can wait in front of the ballpark with your phone, and wait when you're ready to walk in and buy the ticket and walk in. That is great when you win 107 games, but it doesn't work if the team's going the opposite direction. So trying to understand, keeping our season ticket base, renewed and excited about next year, and at the same time give the casual fan the interest and the expectation that we're going to have a fun, exciting season with what's going on the field with our players, but also with all the things we're talking about in promotions and New York Giants and whatever we do. That's all part of the package that we have to present. So those are the things that we think about all the time. It's, our fans ready in this, with the state of the economy, with everything else we're dealing with. Are they still willing to put the San Francisco Giants on their list of things they want to do with their dollars? And it's just a place that they want to be. And our job is to make this ballpark as exciting as possible. And as we always said, we can control everything except for how the team plays. And that's what we're selling until we actually start playing, is that expectation for another great year, which is why the fact that we may not be in the playoffs this year, at least we'll be back in first place on October 5th when the season's over, and we'll start over again.
What's going to bring back?
Does anybody have a question who has not spoken yet? Mars, just anybody who wants to ask a question who did not have the opportunity. Renee, go ahead.
It's first of all, Mario, thank you. I really appreciate you being here and listening to all of this stuff. I mean, there was a lot of things I was going to say, and it was already said. Norm said it eloquently. I mean, Harvey, everybody has. But everything that you said that you're going through, that you're trying to, really, I'm a big history guy. I like to hear it from these guys. I wasn't there. So hearing it from them, seeing it, I love. It enthralls me even more to go to a game because I know history. And the fact that we're going through, the Giants are going through a big anniversary next year is even bigger. And the fact that you're aware of some of the stuff and you seem to be really interested in trying to do something with these ideas excites me to no end. It really gives me pause to be really excited about what you guys are planning to do with the history of the organization on top of, the business end of it as well,
Yeah.
the juggling
Renee,
all that stuff.
Thanks for saying that. Maybe part
And
of
I
it's because-
appreciate that. I really do. To hear
Well-
it from you guys acknowledging that really gives me a sense of, okay. It's not going to happen today, but they're thinking about it now for next year and the year before that. So, it's evolving. That's a positive thing for a fan like myself.
Great. Well, thank you. And maybe it's because I've been with the team for so long that history is important to me. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd do an old timers game 81 times a year.
Wow.
I just love that kind of stuff. But
please, I love that.
I don't mean
too.
that literally now, just, but my point is, I do believe, look at, people are emotional and this game is emotional. And if you touch on their emotions, the way you do that is bring it back to their past. That to me works, but you can't do it 81 times a year because we got to sell the team we have today. Because I'm going to say it again, look at when I was growing up, my idols were John Montefusco and Johnny LeMaster, not because they were the best, because those are the guys at that age where I was really into it. Those are my guys. So, but that's the same thing today, is that the young fans of today, it's the team of today, the team of next year. They will be someone else's John Montefusco's in the future. That is what we can't ever forget. So we got to go back to the past, but we got to remember that person who's today, are they understanding and enjoying and connecting with the personality of those players of today? And I keep going back to this balancing act, but that's really what we're trying to do. And along the way, if we win a few games, it all kind of comes together perfectly. So
one of the things that you just mentioned too is, it's not your area of expertise, is the future of the organization as far as what players they hold on to and who they get and who they bring up in their farm system. That's always a pivotal point every year with an organization. That's your big point right there. That accentuates everything about the ballpark, the players you bring in, especially a kid who's excited and shows promise.
Right.
It just eats up everything. People are going to come to the state, and then you're sprinkling in some more stuff on the buffet table with the history of the organization. It's a big selling point. And thank you for bringing up your thoughts about what you plan to do.
I got a long list here. You guys are like my extended marketing department. This is great.
Hey, we're free.
I'll take the
We're
job.
available.
Thank you again.
Mario,
Thank you.
just realize that, we're asking or just giving our opinion about the New York end, but we also love the San Francisco history as well, and what you did. I know you were in charge of that. Will Clark thing was fabulous, and watching on TV, and you said Johnny LeMaster is your guy. Well, I think of Chris Spire and Ken Henderson with the eye black. That's stuff that I go back to, that I love. So I was not born when they played here. So to me, their history and the San Francisco history, they're one and the same. It's the franchise. It's great. It really is. And winning certainly helps. And that's how we all feel, I would think.
That's why I was actually looking forward to this call today, because I know I think the same way as you guys. I love this stuff, but my job is to pick our spots on on what to do, because you can't do everything. But I love, this is like, I feel like I'm amongst friends, because we all think the same way about the same things, and but we'll see. Look, we get to this time of the year, we all get a little cranky by the time we get to September, but I'm already thinking about us. We talked about this the other day. We're looking at spring training already. Before you know it, it's here. So You know, all I can say is back in 2010, we were, I think we were 8 games out in August. I mean, anything can happen. That's the beauty of our business. But I never thought that Pat and myself and Russ would walk down, the three of us, you know, leading that parade down Montgomery Street. I mean, things happen, and those are memories of a lifetime. So that's the business we're in. We just got to create more memories. But while we're creating those memories, I like your thoughts of sometimes let's remind our fans today of the memories that took place in the past, because that's part of the organization that is today. And I think that's part of what we need to do.
Mario,
Okay.
just know you're always welcome to hop on board any of our Zooms. And Pat is going to be speaking, you know, in November. Hopefully we could see you then as well. But you gave us an hour and a half almost, and I just want to thank you on behalf of everybody. So I'll give it up for Mario.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I
Thank you,
enjoyed it.
Mario.
By the way, what's vitally important is the new rules to speed up the game, which will bring back fans young and old. Because 4-hour games, it's like watching the grass grow. These rule changes are very positive. I think it'll bring back
Mars,
ages.
I think winning brings back people more than anything. So.
Yeah, but you know what? I got to comment what you just said, Mars, because the last few days I've been hearing all positive too about the rule changes, which is kind of nice because a lot of times you change anything and everybody panics. I think these rule changes seem to be. I think it's going to go over pretty well. So, but I agree, Gary. We got to win. Winning solves problems.
Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see
All right,
you.
thanks for having me.
Be well. Thank you so much, Mario.
Okay.
Really.
See ya.
Pat, great
Bye-bye.
seeing you, and Russ, thank you. I will hang around to close out the shop.